Welcome to Cooking from the Cave. I'm Chef Pete Truziak, and today I'm going to show you how to make risotto. This is going to be a mushroom risotto with a little extra. I'm going to add arugula at the end of it. So let's start off with cleaning the mushrooms. I'm going to be using shiitake mushrooms as well as cremini mushrooms. Mushrooms, because of the way they grow and where they grow, you're going to want to just brush them off with a towel. You can get a mushroom brush. Just want to make sure they look clean. There's no dirt or excessive amount of soil on them. For cremini mushrooms, you can just slice through those like they're white mushrooms or button mushrooms. But shiitakes, we want to get rid of that stem. And I find the easiest way to do that is if you put the shiitake in the palm of your hand and you pinch the stem and just give it a little twist. The stem comes right off and you're left with a nice shiitake cap. So we'll do that again for this. And what I'll wind up doing is just slicing the shiitake up fairly thin. And I really like shiitakes because they give the whatever it is you're cooking a lot of flavor. It's a nice full-bodied mushroom. So I try and use them as much as possible. Now, when making risotto, there's a couple rules to think about. First rule is have your stock or your liquid that you're going to be adding to the rice warm. So I have my pot over here, and the second rule when it comes to the rice is we're using arborio rice, which is a short grain Italian rice. The rice itself is a little bit wider, but the reason for using the short grain is you can actually control how you cook it. We're going to slowly cook this, we're going to stir a lot with this, and we're going to ladle the stock into this short grain rice. With that discussion about the rice, the other thing is about the liquid ratio. Usually I do a 3 or 4 to 1 ratio for that rice. So in this case I have about 4 cups of chicken stock over here to about 1 cup of rice over here. I'm turning my pan on. I'm going to start to heat it up. Add a little bit of oil to it. This is olive oil. Start to saute my onions. This is 1 yellow onion that I've diced up really fine. And comparing the onions to the grains of rice, I've just tried to keep them similar in size. Now, when making risotto is going to require a lot of stirring. So you're going to be doing this a lot throughout this entire process. And risotto is not a quick cooking method. It's going to take some time, about 30 to 45 minutes depending on how much you're going to make. But you're going to be stirring constantly throughout this entire process. So do something else in the kitchen. Maybe this is a great recipe, a very elegant recipe, but a great recipe that you can be cleaning your kitchen at the same time, or doing something else where you're not too far away. Come over here, do something, come back to the onions or the rice, and you're going to be stirring that throughout the entire process. We're going to let the onions cook or sweat, basically turn almost translucent. And we're going to let that go for about 2 to 3 minutes. So let me come back to this and I'll show you the next step. I've been sweating the onions now for about 2 minutes. I'm going to add my mushrooms next. And this again are the cremini mushrooms as well as the shiitake mushrooms. There's roughly somewhere between, well, there's right around 12 ounces of sliced mushrooms here. And this process here of cooking the mushrooms down will take another maybe 5 to 10 minutes. What we're trying to do is we're going to remove as much of the liquid inside those mushrooms so we give them a lot of texture without burning them. So again, just stay nearby, stir constantly, and keep an eye on them. Do something else, come back, just keep an eye on them. We've wilted down our mushrooms and the onions have developed a lot of great color. We're going to now add our rice. And the rice is going to be added all at the same time. You just dump it all in. Stir the rice around. Make sure it evenly kind of gets dispersed throughout your pan. And now you're going to watch for the rice to actually change. It's going to go from this starch, bright white, to almost a translucent with a little white pearl in the middle. And that little white pearl in the middle is going to be the eye of the corn. The corn will change and it once it does that, once it gets translucent on the outside and it's really bright white in the center, that's when the rice is telling you, let's add some liquid. In this case, we're going to add a little bit of white wine and also a whole bunch of chicken stock. So you're just going to stir the rice again, like you've been doing the mushrooms and the onions. I have it on medium to low heat. I don't want to burn the rice, I don't want to overcook the rice, but I just want to slowly stir this around, keep an eye on it. You know, don't go cut the yard or anything like that. Stay in the kitchen, watch it, and just wait for it to go to that translucent state. And it's kind of neat if you were to actually sit over and watch it happen. You'll see exactly what I mean when you're stirring this in. Give it about another minute, and then you'll see we can start to add our liquid. We're going to add our white wine. When adding any sort of acid, what you're doing is you're deglazing the bottom of the pan. You're going to bring up, and that simmer is a good sound. So the deglazing, you get that simmer, it means the pan's hot, you're adding a cold liquid. The deglazing process is you're going to pull up any sort of flavor that's stuck to the bottom of the pan, and you're just going to do that with a flat spatula. And all that color that's stuck to the bottom of the pan is going to be pulled up, mixed into the rice. And again, don't be afraid of, really getting down in there and scraping the bottom of that pan. One, it makes your cleanup a lot easier, and two, you're incorporating a bunch of flavor into this thing. The rice will absorb the wine. The wine will be almost completely cooked off. At that point, that's your indicator that we can now start to ladle in our chicken stock into our rice. Now, if you're a vegetarian, obviously we're good up to this point. Just use vegetable stock or use water. We're going to slowly incorporate the chicken stock. I'm not going to pour all of it in at once. Maybe put a cup in at a time. And the big thing here is to continually stir it. I'm also going to put in 2 bay leaves. These are 2 dried bay leaves that we're going to put into the risotto. Bay leaves smell great. They give it a lot of flavor, but you can definitely overdo it. So keep it limited to 1 or 2. No matter how good they smell, it definitely can be too much of a good thing if you add too many of them to it. When stirring risotto, I always do the figure 8 motion. One, it just helps make sure that I get everything incorporated, and I'm not forgetting a little pouch of rice or something like that, but I'm going to just do big figure 8 motions throughout the entire pan, and just to ensure that everything gets incorporated, I'll kind of just rotate the pan a little bit with my left hand, so I'm not always staying in the same spot. Once the chicken stock gets absorbed into the rice, we can add a little bit more chicken stock. But the key here is make sure your liquid, over here our chicken stock, is warm. Not boiling, but warm enough. This process will take you another 25 to 30 minutes to get all this stock used up. So over the next 20, 30 minutes, I'm going to be doing this exact motion here, ladling in some stock, stirring the rice, keeping an eye on it, making sure it doesn't cook too fast. My heat for this right now is at a low temperature. I like seeing the little steam come off of it. I don't want to see it boil at all. Our rice has absorbed all of our chicken stock, and it still looks a little loose, but don't worry about that. You just don't want to see any pools of stock or water in here. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter. Now this will be basically like adding fat to the dish, but also it's going to give you a little bit of flavor. It's going to give it a lot of richness to the dish. And we're just going to stir that butter in. Again, we're on low heat. Follow that up by the cheese. This is shredded Asiago cheese. It's about a half a cup. Stir this till the cheese is melted. The cheese will kind of, again, make this bind together a little bit. The starch from the rice will do that as well. Our final step is just to season it with a little salt and pepper. I shouldn't say our final step, but our next step is to season it with salt and pepper. And then just before you're going to serve it, we're going to fold in and this is chopped arugula. Once again, you want to make sure that you fold in that arugula just before you're going to serve it so that it stays nice and green. You don't want to let that arugula cook too long. Now we can just plate it up and get ready for dinner. There you go, very elegant risotto made with some shiitake mushrooms, arugula. Can be made vegetarian and substituting out that chicken stock for some vegetable stock. But thank you very much for watching Cooking from the Cave. I'm Chef Pete Trusiak, and I will see you real soon.